Self-love might be the most powerful force you can ever have. Not money, not status, not achievements. Self-love. And let me show you why. Because the greatest success, the kind of success nobody talks about enough, is not what you build. It's how you feel when you wake up. Think about this. You wake up in the morning and before anything else, before your phone, before your responsibilities, you feel this. I love being me. I love my life. Not as a sentence, but as a feeling in your chest, in your body, in every cell. I love being me. And I freaking love my life. Let me ask you something honestly. If you felt like that every single morning, would you still be chasing success? Or would you realize you already have it? Because what more is there to achieve than loving your own existence? Think about how far that goes. I love who I am. I love where I am. I love what I'm doing. My life is so good that if I died today, I would gladly live it all over again. Isn't that the definition of a life well lived? Not perfect, not glamorous, just deeply loved. And here is the truth most people miss. You do not need to become anything else to feel that. You do not need to prove anything. You don't need validation. You just need to stop rejecting yourself. Because who cares what you have done if you feel like this? Who cares what anyone says if you feel like you are the best thing in your own life? You cannot get more successful than that. And I once heard someone say this, and it stuck with me. If you truly love your life and yourself, the chase ends. And when the chase ends, something interesting happens. When the chase ends, the real success begins. Because now you are no longer trying to become, you are. And from that state, everything changes. Your decisions change. Your energy changes. Your presence changes. And yes, your results change. Because when you genuinely feel aligned, your life starts responding differently. Opportunities appear. People show up. Things start moving. And people call it manifestation. But it's not magic, it's alignment. And the more aligned you are, the faster things start to happen. Let me give you a story. There was a spiritual teacher, maybe you have heard him, Paramahansa Yogananda. He was sitting on a bus with his disciple. They were just traveling, nothing special, and the disciple looks outside, sees a beautiful place and says, that would be a perfect place to build a temple. Yogananda responds, no, I don't want to imagine a new temple. But it was already too late. Because the moment the idea entered his awareness, it was created. And within a year, a temple was built in that exact place. Now think about that. One moment, one thought, one image, and reality followed. Now, I'm not telling you this as fantasy. I'm telling you because this pattern repeats again and again, and I have seen it in my own life. Just recently, my wife told me something. In Spain, where we now live, they passed a law. Women can now take time off work during their periods. Paid. Think about that. And here is the crazy part. 1 year before that law, I said this exact thing out loud. I said, this is not fair. This needs to change. There should be a system where women can stay home when they need to. I didn't post about it. I didn't campaign. I didn't try to push it. I just said it and let it go. At that time, we were living in Finland. Then we moved to Spain. And out of all countries in the world, Spain became the first to make it legal. Coincidence? Maybe. But these coincidences start happening a lot when you begin to understand alignment. This is not magic. This is alignment. And I'm not saying this to impress you. I'm saying this because it sounds crazy. It sounds almost delusional. The idea that your thoughts, your words, your inner state can shape reality. But when you start observing your life, really observing your life, you begin to see patterns. You begin to notice things don't just happen. They respond. And the key is not just thinking. It is alignment. Because most people think, but they do not align. They say one thing, feel another, do something else, and then you wonder why nothing ever works. This is why I talk about this framework, the 4LOC method. Thoughts, emotions, actions, and words. And when these four are aligned, your intention becomes powerful. Not before. Let me make this more real for you. Because this is not just theory. This is how it actually plays out in a life. My wife is one of the greatest examples of this I have ever seen. Maybe because I watch her so closely. And the funny thing is, she doesn't even try to manifest. She doesn't sit there visualizing all day. She doesn't talk about energy or frequencies most of the time. She just thinks, feels, moves, and speaks, and somehow life starts arranging itself around that. She was working in the social sector, helping people, physically being there for them. That was her world. And she absolutely loved it. But at the same time, there was another seed of thought growing inside her, a quiet one, a dangerous one. Freedom. The idea of not being tied to one place, not being limited by location. She wanted to help people, but not from one place from anywhere. Now, think about that for a second. At that time, that didn't even make sense. How do you help people remotely? In a field that depends on presence, it sounded impossible. But the thought was there, and she didn't fight it. She allowed it. Then life started shifting. She moved into coaching, worked with autistic children, still not fully remote, still not exactly what she wanted, but closer. Then something happened that changed everything. COVID. And suddenly the entire system was forced to change. Remote work became normal. What was impossible became standard. And just like that, she was working from home. The first layer of her intention became real. But she didn't stop there because another thought had already planted. She wanted to become a therapist. So while working, she found a school, started studying, and during one of the sessions, they asked a simple question. What do you see in your future? And for a moment, she saw it. Just a glimpse. She saw herself on a beach, taking calls, helping people, warm air, sunlight, freedom. And then it disappeared. Just a thought. Nothing more. But here is where it gets interesting. Before she even finished her studies, we moved to Spain, and suddenly we were living in a place with beaches, warm weather, palm trees, and every now and then she was working from there. That random thought started becoming real, but still, she didn't have therapy clients yet, still not fully there, still in between. And then life made a move. She lost her job out of nowhere, right when she was finishing therapy school. Now, most people would panic. And yes, there was uncertainty. But underneath that, there was something else, a quiet knowing. This is not the end. This is space being created. And then the most unbelievable thing happened. A colleague from her therapy school reached out. She was in a high position in an international company. And they were planning something new, something that didn't even exist before. A role for a solution-focused brief therapist, and not just anywhere, in Spain. And the first person they hired was my wife. Exactly the role she had imagined became reality. Exactly the environment she had seen. Exactly the freedom she had felt. So let me ask you this again. Coincidence or alignment? Because when you start looking at life like this, you begin to notice something. You do not create everything by force. Some things you create by becoming the person who is already there. I remember a moment very clearly. We had just moved to Spain. We were standing on the balcony. Palm trees in front of us, the ocean stretching endlessly, warm air touching the skin, and I was holding the railing. Just like this, with both of my hands, standing there, looking, feeling. And then it hit me. This was not new. Years before that exact moment, I had shown my wife something. I told her, remember this. And I stood in a very specific way, hands in front of me, like holding something, smiling at nothing, or at least that's what it looked like back then. But what I was actually doing was standing on that balcony before it existed, feeling it before it happened. And now I was exactly as I imagined there, but not imagining, not visualizing, living it. So many of these moments started stacking. As a child, my stepmom once said to me, "You should be a writer." I was maybe 9 years old. I had written something simple, nothing special, but maybe she just saw something or said it like it was nothing special. But today, you know what? I'm an author, not by accident, not by luck, but because something was planted. A word, a belief, an identity, and it stayed. And over time, I started to understand something. I started to realize something. Life doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are aligned with. The way you show up changes everything. Let's make this practical because this is not just about big dreams. This is about how you walk into a room, how you speak, how you carry yourself. Let me give you a simple example. I walk into a shop, avoid eye contact, make myself small, act like I don't belong. What happens? People notice, even though I don't want them to. Security notice because something feels off. Now I feel watched. That makes me more uncomfortable, which makes me act even more suspicious. And suddenly, I'm treated like someone who doesn't belong. Now, same situation, different energy. I walk in calm, present, grounded, not arrogant, just certain. I belong here. Now the experience changes. Same place, different reality. Why? Because of alignment. And this is not just my experience. There was a former CIA officer. She talked about this. They studied criminals, pickpockets actually, and they noticed something. It wasn't random. Criminals didn't choose victims randomly. They selected them based on behavior, posture, awareness, energy. And here is the wild part. They actually could predict who would get robbed before anything even happened because victims move differently. They carry themselves differently. They signal something unconsciously. And predators sense it. It's the nature's way. So what does this tell you? Your life is not just happening to you. It is responding to you. There is a story I want you to really feel. A young man, curious, hungry, searching. He attends a seminar, sees a wealthy, successful man speaking on stage, not just rich in money, but rich in presence. After the seminar ends, most people leave, but not this young man. He follows the man, not in a creepy way, but in a certain way. The man goes to a restaurant, sits down, orders food, and suddenly this young man walks straight to his table and sits down. No invitation, no permission, just courage. And he asks, how do I become successful like you are? Now, think about that moment. No small talk, no excuses, no hesitation, just a direct question. The successful man looks at him, looks at this young man, and gives a very simple answer. You have to walk like you own the place. That's it. No long explanation, no strategy, just one sentence. And most people hear that and still misunderstand it. They think it means arrogance, ego, dominance. But that's not what it means. It means something much deeper. Let's slow this down because this might be one of the most important shifts you ever make. What does it really mean? To walk like you own the place. It means this: I belong here. Not I hope I'm accepted. Not I shouldn't be here. Not let me stay small so I don't disturb anyone. It means I'm allowed to exist fully in this space. Think about how you would act if you owned the place. Would you hesitate? Would you shrink? Would you apologize for being there? No. You would move naturally, speak clearly, and decide. Take space, not aggressively, just normally, like you are in your home, because it is yours. And here is the truth. Most people do not live like this. They apologize with their body. They shrink with their energy. They ask for permission to exist. And I know this very well because I used to be that person. I made myself small. I avoided attention. I doubt every single thing. And do you know what happened? Life treated me accordingly. In restaurants, I was ignored. In conversations, I wasn't heard. In opportunities, I wasn't chosen. Not because I wasn't capable, but because I didn't show up as someone who belonged. Then something changed. And not outside, inside. My attitude. Let's break this word down. Originally, it meant posture, how you would physically carry yourself, but over time, it evolved. Now it means your mental state, your inner position. So when we talk about owning it, we are talking about both your body and your mind aligned. Let's go deeper. To own it means you carry confidence without needing approval. You take responsibility without blaming others. You act without waiting to be told. It means you lead, even when no one asked you to, you see? And here is something powerful. Leadership is not knowing all the answers. Leadership is being willing to move, even without certainty, which makes leaders certain. And this brings us to one of the most important skills in life: decision making. Tony Robbins talks about this all the time. He says successful people decide fast, unsuccessful people stay stuck in thinking. Let me give you the story. A group of people had been analyzing a big decision for months. They had data, reports, opinions, everything, but still they couldn't decide. Finally, they bring everything to a top leader. He listens for a few minutes, then makes the decision. Done. And someone asks him, how could you decide so fast when we have been thinking about this for months? And he answers, because a decision creates movement. Indecision keeps you stuck. If I'm wrong, I'll adjust. But if I don't decide, nothing changes. Think about that. A wrong decision moves you forward. No decision keeps you trapped. And this is where most people lose their power. They wait, they hesitate, they overthink, they look for certainty that never comes. But the truth is, clarity comes after movement, not before. There is a sentence you should remember. One person with commitment is more powerful than 1,000 people with interest. Let me show you another layer, because this goes deeper than decisions. This goes into how you see yourself. I was once at a seminar with Richard Bandler, the founder of NLP, hundreds of people in the room, and we were talking about something interesting. Why people struggle to receive, to accept credit, to be seen, and suddenly he points at me. Come here. I walk to the stage in front of everyone, and he exposes something I didn't even realize I was doing. Every time someone praised me, I rejected it. It was nothing. Anyone could do it. It's not a big deal. Even my body language pushed it away. And then he made me do something different. He made me stand there while people clapped. And I had to do absolutely nothing. No jokes, no deflection, just receive it. And that moment taught me something powerful. If you cannot receive, you will never fully have. Because owning it also means this: you accept your value. You do not shrink it, you do not hide it, you do not apologize for it. So now you start to see the pattern. Your life is shaped by how you see yourself, how you move, how you decide, how you receive. And all of that comes down to one thing: your attitude. There are ways we make ourselves smaller, ways we walk into rooms already defeated, ways we speak already apologizing, ways we live already limiting ourselves. And then we wonder why life feels heavy, why people do not respond, why things do not move. But it's not punishment. It's simply reflection. Life reflects how you show up. And here is the truth most people do not want to hear. It's not anyone's fault. It's not the world against you. It's not bad luck. So what it is then? It is patterns. It's conditioning. It's unconscious choices repeating themselves. But here is the good news. The moment you become aware of it, you can change it. And sometimes that change starts with a decision, a real one. Not maybe someday, not I'll try, a decision. We had a moment like that in our family, a phase, where everything started to feel heavy. Our daughter was complaining about everything: school, friends, food, going outside, training, walking, whatever you can imagine, even when everything was fine. Of course, it wasn't enough. There is nothing to eat, even when the fridge was full. Maybe you have children and you know this phase, I don't know. And slowly that energy spread into the home, into us. We went from calm to frustration, from patience to arguments, from understanding to reacting. And one day we saw it clearly. This is not who we are. And in that moment, we made a decision, not perfectly, not instantly, but clearly. This ends here, not the situation, the attitude. Because that is what it was, an attitude of complaining, an attitude of blaming, an attitude of seeing problems everywhere. And we said, no, this is not welcome in our lives anymore. Now, listen carefully. Nothing external changed. We still had the same things going on. We still had routines. We still had responsibilities. Same life, but something inside shifted. We started choosing differently. We started laughing more, even in small moments. We played music while cleaning. We joked in the grocery store. We turned ordinary moments into something alive. And suddenly, life felt lighter. Not because it became easier, but because we changed how we met it. So ask yourself this. Is there something in your life right now that you are tired of? A pattern, a reaction, a version of yourself that you do not want to continue anymore? Then decide not tomorrow. Now. Enough is enough. This is not me anymore. Because here is the truth. You do not need a new life. You need a new way of showing up in your life. And when you shift that, everything starts to feel different. There are many attitudes you can carry. The own it attitude, but also a loving attitude, a playful attitude, a curious attitude, a positive attitude, a supportive attitude. You choose every day who you are, how you carry yourself. And when you combine that with alignment, your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and your words, something powerful happens. You stop reacting and you start creating. Life becomes less about control and more about awareness, less about forcing and more about allowing. And then something beautiful happens. Even ordinary things start to feel meaningful. You start noticing things you ignored before. The way your body works, the way nature moves, the way a simple moment can feel full. And you realize this whole experience is already something incredible. Think about this for a second. A seed becomes a tree. Water travels the entire planet. An atom is mostly empty space, and still everything exists. There are things you do not understand, and that's okay, because the moment you can say, I do not know, you open the door to curiosity, to wonder, to growth. And when you start living from that place, you begin to see something most people miss. Life is not something you survive. It's something you play. You are already playing this game. People are already playing this game. They just do not know it. They don't know the rules. They do not know why things happen the way they do. But the moment you start understanding how your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and your words work together, everything starts to change. And that's really what this is about. Not becoming someone else, but finally realizing how to be you fully. And maybe, just maybe, this question is a good place to start. If nothing was impossible for you, what would you actually do with your life? Not what feels realistic, not what others expect, not what you have been told is possible. What would you really do? I'm curious. Let me know. Put it in the comments.